One of the wild cards, of course, is that Iran is not included in the equation and they're not willing to come in.
So, Robert, we saw a surge in oil prices in recent weeks. Can you talk us through how things are looking in regards to oil prices at present?
Well, they did indeed, from lows in the upper 20s, around 30, so there was about a 40 to 50% surge. I think the market's basically saying it couldn't get much lower, and they can't. Everyone is suffering. Also, there was the anticipation, and I think some of the effect of the announcement of this production freeze, which the Saudi Arabians and Russia want to pursue, and that had an effect. Having said that, the oil prices have retreated, so they're back below 40. Some people think they're going to continue to go down because the general situation of oversupply has not really been addressed. So I think the market sentiment is tussling between oil prices cannot stay this low. On the other hand, the fundamentals are not necessarily allowing it to get much higher at the moment.
Definitely, and on April the 17th, there's a meeting with the global oil producers. So can you tell us about that meeting and what do you expect from that meeting?
Well, again, it's driven by a number of the major producers, in particular Saudi Arabia and Russia. They're trying to bring together the major countries representing about 2/3 of oil production with the idea to institute a production freeze based on January production. So the markets had some reaction to that. However, it seems that, again, the markets have pulled back, realizing that a production freeze doesn't necessarily address production oversupply. One can expect that the low prices will persist for some time going forward. One of the wild cards, of course, is that Iran is not included in the equation and they're not willing to come in because obviously they are just returning back to international markets. They just had their first oil cargo sold in Europe after a number of years. Cargo went to Total and some of the med refiners in Spain and Italy have been buying Iranian cargoes. So they're going to continue to try to increase their production and exports. So that's, is sort of the countervailing argument that the production freeze may not have quite the effect that people were hoping for.
Sure, and you mentioned you expect prices to decline a little bit. So throughout 2016, where do you kind of see prices falling?
Well, it's a question of how low for how long is the question everyone's asking themselves. Now, in terms of where prices ultimately have to go, they have to go up. The world consumption is around 95 million barrels per day. Production's around 97 million. Maybe it's gone down a little bit. There's been some reduction of the U.S. shale oil production. But in order to, in the long run, whether that's a year or the next several years, in order to produce 95 million barrels, you need high-cost oil such as shale and offshore oil. So you need an oil price that supports the continuing development of high-cost fields in the long run. So it has to go up. It cannot stay at 40. And you say most everyone starts losing money except for perhaps the Middle East producers. So at some point there has to be that increase. What seems to be holding it back is no one wants to cut production willingly. So it's a fight for market share. The low-cost producers certainly do not want to give up market share to the high-cost producers. So it's just a war that's going on. And the long-term, the argument that the Saudis are using is that increases in demand. And again, China would be a big factor there, and with slower demand from China. It's increasing, but more slowly than it has been. That's one factor, and the continuing hope that high-cost producers will be forced to reduce production will bring the markets back into balance. But again, the prediction, the expectation is it has to go up 50, probably even more, 60, could be 60 to 70 even, but when? And this is I have no idea exactly when. Watch this space, yeah. But I think they'll say that in terms of the immediate meeting coming up, I expect there'll be disappointment with the result. That it doesn't address, again, it might institute some sort of freeze, but it doesn't really address the current oversupply.
Really interesting. Well, Robert, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your
Well, thank you very
insights.
much for having me.
That's all from myself and Robert, but if you like this video, like and comment on dukascopy.tv. Goodbye for now.